with two of his daughters. He could have had his wife too, but she didn't make it out, as the Parsha discusses in detail why. And not only that, Lot sees his entire town, the city, is being completely destroyed. And he ends up in a cave, and in that cave is where he is of the Chaim. He drinks. And after he drinks, he becomes intoxicated, becomes drunk. And after he's becoming drunk, he ends up in a very, how should I use the word, but let's not use any word, because whatever word you're going to use is not going to describe the severity of it, is when his own daughter is having a relationship with him, an intimate relationship with them.
Uncomfortable.
And then not only that, he gets up the next morning and he sobers up, realizing what happened, he drinks again. By now you should know that drinking is not good for you. And the second daughter is doing the same which the elder sister did. Eventually there are children from this birth. Yeah.
Didn't the daughters really plot the whole thing and
whatever. David Schneider is going to give a class 8:30, tell you exactly what happened behind Ammon and Moab. And here's where the second daughter is having a child, is having a relationship with them. And we all know that from these relationships came out two children. The first child, the mother named Moab. She had such chutzpah to refer to her son with the word Moab, which in Hebrew means Me'av, from my father. And that's why the Torah really puts an extra disrespect to Moab. We are told never to forget. We are not nice to Moabites. And the second child is called Ammon, which we are also not nice to them, but less than to Moab. And that mother is less chutzpah. Also, she was sent by the elder sister. And this is the story. We all know from that story later, we have the book of Ruth, which David HaMelech is a descendant of this relationship. Writes the Moshe Feinstein the following. He became a rabbi in 1922 in a small city called Luban. Luban is in Belarus. Okay? Belarus. Not far from Chaslavich. He was first going to become rabbi in Chaslavich, but then he ended up in Luban. Being rabbi in Luban, in a lot of his earlier responses written in the earliest tractates of the book, is actually things that he wrote while being in Luban. Seems like it was a small shtetl, not a big city. He got married in Luban, his wife was from Luban. So he writes, but then he wanted to say that even Luban was a city, small city, but the people there were some very, very special people. And he described there were people there which probably reached to a level of almost Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration. Because they were involved just in Torah study, in prayer, they had nothing else in their life. So they really reached great heights in their spiritual achievements. He writes, in the beginning of the winter of 1922, one of the community members, he refers to them as Balei Batim. Balei Batim is a reference to community members, became ill. A very unusual illness. His tongue became swollen into his mouth to a point that he couldn't eat, he couldn't drink, barely spoke. As they say, Gozel up it. That God watches all from it. And as he became even more sick, Rabbi Moshe decided to go visit him. Rabbi went to visit one of his community members. And the person lying on his sick bed asked everybody to leave the room. And he says, Rebbe, I want to tell you what's the reason for my sickness. What happened to me? And he tells him this following. Last week was Shabbos Parsha's Vayeira, which is the name of this week's Parsha. And I was sitting on the table Shabbos, and I asked the question, how was it possible that Lot's daughters shall merit that ultimately even Moshiach is going to be one of their descendants, even though they were so disrespectful and so disgraced, behaving so immorally with something which we can consider adultery in the way they took advantage of their father, letting everyone know, Moab, this is from our father, speaking so disrespectfully about their own father. And I kept on questioning it. Why do they deserve such great, wonderful grandchildren, all the way that Mashiach is going to be one of them? Then at night, this fellow in Luban tells Reb Moshe, I have a dream. Two old ladies with a veiled face and head covered came to me in my dream, introducing themselves, we are the daughters of Lot. Okay? And we heard your question. We heard when you complained about us. And we came all the way from up there, from the world of truth, to respond to your question. And they said as follows. The truth is that after we became pregnant, we could have said, you know, we are from the family of Abraham. We survived miraculously the destruction of Sodom. No one would have assumed, no one would have even think that we behaved unmodestly. We had a chance to claim that everything what happened to us is miraculous. Even though no person is left in Sodom, but you know what? God himself impregnated us. Yet he was the one who gave us that child. We had an intimate relationship with God. And then he would have come and create a new religion like Christianity. But you know what? We decided to tell the truth. Moab, this is what we did. This child came from our father and Ammon to let the whole world know that when a woman becomes pregnant, that woman and that child always had a father. There is no way that God has children with somebody. And you know what? And because of that, we merited that the true Mashiach is going to come from us, not a false Mashiach. Mm-hmm. Because the false Mashiach is exactly that claim that we could have claimed, but we didn't. This is what the two ladies are telling this man. But still, you spoke of us in a very disgraceful way. You spoke of us with Shnora in a very disrespectful manner. And you know, it says in the Chumash that when the Meraglim, the spies, when they spoke against the land, so Rashi says that their tongue became swollen, and through their tongue is what caused their death, and that is going to happen to you. The man finished telling me the story. He turned his face to the wall, says Reb Moshe, and he passed away. I saw in it a true insight, since the explanation seems to me a true explanation. This is the words of Reb Moshe Feinstein, okay? This is not coming from any, what do you call it? Any New Age kind of ideas and revelations. He shares a story what he heard in Luban, and he finds it necessary. He's the legalist, he's the rationale, he's the man of systematic Judaism, right? A story. And he said in this Parsha. Why am I saying this story? First of all, it's okay for you to hear this story. It's okay for me to hear this story. It's okay to know there are people who record stories like this. But at the same time, I think this is something which we are going to see even more in other events which evolve in this week's Parsha. So this week is Parsha's Vayeira, which comes after last week, the famous story of the miracle Sarah, in the age of 90 years old, is giving birth to was told that she's going to give birth to a son, Yitzchak. So far, nothing happened, right? She laughed. That's the only thing we know. But what we also know is that Avram does have a son. As a matter of fact, this is his firstborn son. A son who was born to his wife, Hagar. That son's name is Ishmael. This is what we read last week. Anybody who read last week's Parsha knows that Ishmael was born to Hagar, Avram's wife, and Ishmael also had a bar mitzvah at the age of 13. He couldn't probably dance too much at his bar mitzvah because the day of his bar mitzvah he also happened to have his bris on the very same day. So it wasn't that big of a dancing party for him. So he sat on a chair and he enjoyed the presents or whatever took place at his bar mitzvah. And when you see an Ogor, don't think that Ogor was for Ogor to become a union to Avram. She was a tremendous woman. She was on a level of being a very righteous woman. Number one, she was born, as the Medrash says, to Pharaoh, at that present time Pharaoh. She left her father's royal palace just to attach herself to the house of Avram and the teachings of Avram and Sarah, which was about God and monotheism, which she wasn't introduced to it till that point. So she left everything to come to Avram. Actually, Rashi says that her name was Keturah. Didn't only have a name Hagar, she had the name Keturah, and Rashi says, why was she named Keturah? Because Keturah is similar to one of the most sacred services in the temple called the Ketoret, the offering of the incense. The same achievement that one will achieve by offering the Ketoret, which was like a holy service done by the Kohen every day, right? The Kohen. That service was accomplished by the action of this woman called Keturah, Agar. Keturah is Agar. Even after Avram chased her out of the house, Rashi says Keturah, that Keturah also means from the word not. She locked herself up. She did not go marry anyone. She did not date anybody. She was waiting for the day that she could go back to Avram's life. As a matter of fact, she did come back to Avram's life after the passing of Sarah. Avram did remarry Keturah. She became what we call, in contemporary language, she became a balas tshuva, right? and Avram married her. So she was not a person, just a woman Keturah. Anybody knows this is all. What I'm saying now is Rashi explaining in next week's Parsha. If you want to look it up for a second, open your Chumash to page 120. Verse 1. It says, Vayeira, this is after Sarah's death, and after Yitzchak got married to Rivka. What does the verse say? On chapter 25, verse 1, Vayosef Avraham. Avram proceeded, Vayikach Isha, and he took a wife, Ushma Keturah, whose name was Keturah. Says Rashi, and you have it here in English, in the bottom in the footnote. Keturah, says Rashi, Avram remarried Hagar, who was given this name, Keturah, because her deeds were as beautiful as incense, as the service of Ktoret, and because she remained chaste. Keturah in Aramaic is for restrained, like a knot, like a bond, from the time she was separated from Avram. Avram remarried her, and they started a whole new family with the same woman, Keturah. And Keturah had a child, Ishmael. Ishmael had something which even Avram didn't have. And this is his name. Why was he named Ishmael? So we saw also in last week's Parsha that the Malach, the angel, told her in the name of God, Vayomer lo Malach Hashem Yirso, Inoch Oro, he said, you will conceive and give birth to a son, Vekoros Shmo Yishmael. You shall name his name Yishmael. That was last week on page 71, on verse 11. Why Yishmael? Ishmael is a Hebrew word which makes up two other words. Shema El. What does it mean, Shema El? God, Hashem, has heard your prayers. Shema El. That's what the word Ishmael came, Ismael. That became a name. His name, Ishmael. Even Ishmael, despite his behavior, became at the end of his life a Baal Tshuva. He came back to the life of Avram. And when God is telling Avram that in Sarah that you're going to have another child, what does Avram tell God? I don't need another child. Let me see my nachas through Ishmael. Again, is that something which we discussed, we learned in last week's Parsha. On page 75, verse 18, Vayomer Avram el Elokim, and Avram said to God, Lu Ishmael ichi lefanecha. You telling me I'm going to have a child in the age of 100 years old, in the age of 90? Why? Let Ishmael be my child. I wish Ishmael may live before you. As Ramban explains, Avram got nervous. He has a child. Why is Hashem now suddenly coming in this age of 100 years old, telling him I'm going to have another child? Maybe Ishmael is going to be taken from him at a young age, says the Ramban. So Avram is turning to God. He says, it's okay. Ich darf nicht. Let the nachas be Ishmael. And Hashem says, no. You're going to have Yitzchak. Ishmael was circumcised. That circumcision gave a lot of strength, a lot of courage to Ishmael. I don't know if you ever heard this. A Zohar, in the end of Parshas Vayeira, I think. Let's see. kids are playing sports. Oh, I got the wrong one. This is Shmoyes Gimel. Shmoyes, I need Shmoyes. Aleph. Yeah. The video doesn't go all the way, right?
Who's this young guy?
He plays basketball.
No, it's the ball.
You could help him out with
The Zohar says in the end, in the book of Shmot, in the end of Parshas Vayeira, he brings a story of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Chia were traveling together, and Rabbi Yossi tells Rabbi Chia, say something, why are you so silent? Say something that you learned. Rabbi Chia fainted, and he cried, and a whole story, and he says, Sarai was barren, and she didn't have children, and started crying, voice to the time that Ogor gave birth to Ishmael. So Rabbi Yossi says, why are you saying it voy? It's not such a big voy. First of all, she had another child, Yitzchak, right? And then they go on, that Avram said, Lu Yishmael Ichel Lefanecha, says the Zohar, even though God is telling Avram, you're going to have Yitzchak. Right? So he says, because Avram really cleaved to Ishmael. Avram really loved Ishmael. Avram was not looking for anything else. He's happy with Ishmael. Says the Zohar, 400 years was that minister, whatever the heavenly minister, which is in charge of the Ishmaelites. And he turned to God, and he kept on wanting God to take care of the Ishmaelites. God, you got to be good to the earth. Every nation, every nationality has someone who represents them up in heaven. Esav, that's the famous war of the angel of Esav fighting with Yaakov. With the angels. So Rashi says, every nation has its representatives. So the representative of Ishmael is standing 400 years and asking God, hello, you got to take care of us. So God says to him, sorry. He keeps on pushing him off. So the angel representing Ishmael turns to God and he says, tell me, God, Mandi is Gazar, Islech Choluka B'Shmoch. Somebody who is circumcised does have a connection with you, does associate with you. God says, yes, for sure, somebody is circumcised. So the angel says, hello, Ishmael did it. And Ishmael did it in the age of 13, so why wouldn't he have a share with you like Yitzchak? And God says, Yitzchak did it properly, didn't do it so properly, 8 days, not at 13, and so on, and so on. And then the Zohar goes on and he connects and he says, voice to the time that Ishmael was born and circumcised, because of Ishmael's circumcision, that gives him the ability to control the Holy Land of Israel. Especially when the Jews are not, it's so funny, it's almost like prophecy. The Zohar says like this, listen to those words. The Ishmaelites, this was written in Talmudic time, okay? This goes back almost 2,000 years ago, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. He says, the Ishmaelites, God told the angel, are going to control Israel as long when the Jews are not there. And they're actually going to prevent the Jews to come back there. And they're going to have the ability to prevent them until slowly but surely that merit of Ishmael's circumcision will expire.
So Ishmael was 13, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Muslims now still circumcised at 13.
Right.
Yeah.
You see that? So if you look at it, until it will expire, meaning to say that we all look what's going on between Gaza all the way to New York, to the who knows where. All this has to do with Ishmael's circumcision, being a descendant of Avram. And the Zohar talks about, yes, God couldn't ignore it. Yes, he does have. Question is, why takenat? Lama lo? What would have been wrong for Ishmael to be the inheritor of Avram? Let's leave it as is. Why do we need to go into a Yitzchak and to create a second child and then having to deal with a Ishmael who is first and before? Let's have everything invested into Ishmael. And Ishmael is the inheritor of Yaakov, and then everything will be good. If you look in Torah in general, we give special respect to the firstborn. Bechor gets a double portion of the inheritance. The Torah says even if somebody has two wives, and he had a child with the first wife, and then there's a child with the second wife, and he does not like the first wife, doesn't matter, that child is going to get the Yerusha, the inheritance, a double portion just for the very fact that he is the first. Bechor. The Talmud says, kabed et avicha. It doesn't say kabed avicha, honor father. It says et avicha. Et usually means lerabot, to include something else. Who does it include? Your older brother. Just like you have to honor your parents, brother number one has to be given special respect. A boy who is born as the first boy belongs to God. You have to do a whole process of pidyon haben. You have to redeem him and get him back from the Kohen. So everything should be one. In this week's Parsha, you see clearly now who becomes the successor of Avram. Child number 2, Yitzchak. Even later, when Yitzchak is giving birth to 2 children, who becomes the successor of Yitzchak? Child number 2, Yaakov. Yes, he has to undertake a whole trick to so-called, take advantage, so to speak, of a situation and having a hungry brother. So in exchange of ice cream cone, he takes from him the firstborn right. Right? A plate of lentils, whatever. But it's the second who becomes Yitzchak's successor. And even Yaakov's own kids. When he has finally his son Yosef from his wife Rachel, and they have 2 children, Menashe and Ephraim, so we all know how the end of Bereshit ends. The right hand somehow gets suddenly switched around, and Ephraim is becoming the stronger and the greater. What's the story of number 2 always being the side effect? I'm number 2 in my house. So I have to appreciate that story. But what is it with number 2? If you're giving respect to number 1 and you always consider the Bechor, the firstborn, and you make a whole big deal about the Bechor, let Ishmael be the guy, let Esav be the person, and let Menashe be the person. So the simple answer, which some are going to tell you, is that the Torah, like everything in Torah, is a lesson, and the Torah wants to help the second child. Other times we tell ourselves, if I would have only been born at the right time, if I would have only been, in the right place, I would have been who knows what. Come the Torah and says, hello. All the great people were actually number 2. Okay? So stop looking for excuses. Okay? Yitzchak was number 2. Yaakov was number 2. Ephraim is number 2. Don't say that just because I'm not number 1, this is
Avram was number two too.
Avram was also number 2. Okay, Avram was number 2. So this is what you would hear, I guess, people taking the moral of the fact that we're not considering number 1. But the Rebbe takes it into a very different level, a whole different approach, which basically brings out what is Avram all about, what is Sarah all about, what is Yitzchak all about, what is Judaism all about. How do you build a nation? The Rebbe says, let's analyze for a second the difference between Ishmael and Yitzchak. Very simple difference. We read about it last week and this week. Ishmael was born naturally. Yitzchak was born miraculously. This is the essential difference between these two personalities. Ishmael had a mother, had a father. It's okay, young age. He came back from a long trip, so be respectful. Both of them, a young married couple, were naturally proceeded with the journey of life, and a child was born. Child was born. Sarah was a Korah. You know what Korah means? She was a barren woman. What does barren mean? Huh? Oh. Rashi says she wasn't just barren because it was a delay in the revelation, or who knows, some type of issue that you can go to a doctor and try to organize you and fix it. You can make an IVF procedure and then put it back in your womb, and after 9 months, she's going to be the delivering mother. Sarah had no womb. That's why it says in the Parsha, V'sorai akoro ein lo velad. Ein lo velad, says Rashi, she did not have a womb, not she didn't have children. She couldn't give birth at all. And yet, miraculously, a child was born. And even that, to have the child, she knew that this is going to be a joke. Everyone's going to laugh. It's impossible. She named him Yitzchak. Because everyone thinking about this woman giving birth to a child is a laughter. You can see the difference. 2 boys are walking to school together. Ishmael has a beautiful name. God heard me, allowed me to conceive naturally, normally. Who is this jockey kid? You know, everyone sees him. What happened there? Funny. Alte Bobbe schlepping a baby. So why is it? What is the point here? Says the Rebbe, when we talk about developing the Jewish people as a nation, you have to make a statement. And the statement is, we are not a natural phenomenon. Our whole being from day one, our whole existence, our occurrence in this world is supernatural. That's how we started. Not only that's how we started, that's our message to the world. If you think that you're going to deal with us in the way you want to deal with us, for whatever reasons of jealousy or hatred, so you're going to overcome us, forget about it. We are Yitzchak's kids. And you know what Yitzchak is? Yitzchak is a man who was not coming to the world in any natural order. no doctor, no organization, no one believed that this is going to happen. But at the same time, we don't go around, like I told you before from Rabbi Farkash, no one goes around and he says that Sarah had some relationship, and somehow got him pregnant, Chas v'sholom, and he is a child of God. No. He's a child of Avraham. And he's a child of Sarah. He has two fathers of flesh and blood, two human beings. But in the physical world, this phenomenon is supernatural. Doesn't make sense. This is our story. We are not Ishmaelites. We have to come from such a type of birth. Tonight, on the Jewish calendar, is Tet Zayin Cheshvan. Tes Zayin Cheshvan is tonight, right?
Yes.
The 16th of Cheshvan. 16th of Cheshvan. Exactly 80 years ago tonight, which on the English calendar it's November 10th. But the parallel to November 10, 1938, is the 16th of Cheshvan, 1938. This was one of the initial terrible pogroms which developed into the Holocaust known as the Kristallnacht. Crystal, referring to the glass of the many synagogues, which their glasses, their windows were broken and shattered and burned down, and 400 Jews, I believe, in Germany were murdered that night of the 16th of Cheshvan tonight. Exactly 80 years ago tonight. Kristallnacht, 1938. What happens 80 years later, the week of Kristallnacht in Germany? So I'm watching COL, Chabad Lubavitch news on the internet. And there is a picture. What is the picture? The Chabad Rabbi of Berlin, which I just visited him in June. I was there for 6 hours. A beautiful Chabad building, synagogue, a mikveh, a restaurant, a school. And behind the building, the week before I came, was a huge, massive gathering for a groundbreaking, for even a bigger shul, most of it sponsored by the German government. So this week, the Rabbi Tachtel, Yehudi Tachtel, is visiting the president of Germany. What's his name? No. Steinmeier, whatever, one of those names. Anyway, he's visiting the president of Germany. And they speak about the Jewish community. When is your next holiday, the president asks. So the next holiday is going to be Hanukkah. And what's your plans? Rabbi Tachtel said, like every year, we're going to put a massive menorah at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. You all know what the Brandenburg Gate represents. Anyone who read about the Holocaust and the German marching. There is where we put our menorah celebrating our freedom. So the president say, can I be invited? Can I be a part of this celebration? Can I be a part maybe lighting the menorah? Sure. So in the same week, when 80 years ago, the city was on fire, every synagogue, which were many synagogues in Germany, was pogromed, and this obviously was a very, very difficult step in the development of which came following it, the full Holocaust story. 80 years later, in the same country, in the same area, in the same city, the one who represents them, not representing us, he's standing there and he's asking like a schnorrer if he can come and join a Hanukkah party the Jews are celebrating at that gate. Where is it coming from? It only comes because my kids of Yitzchak of the second son and not of Ishmael, the first son. This is because our relationship with God in our existence in this world is like the story of Yitzchak. It does not make any sense. 100-year-old man, Avram, and a woman, Sarah. And she herself, Sarah, she was a very nice Rebbetzin, a nice woman, but she herself didn't believe it. She laughed. She laughed. And God had to ask Avram, what did she say? She said, he's old, I'm old. You know, the old change of words that God is trying to keep the peace in that house. We don't go for the first child, we go for the second child, is exactly for that reason to show who we are and what is our secret of existence. But not only that, it's also what is our legacy, what is our message, what's the legacy of Yitzchak and Sarah and Avram. The legacy is that don't get lost in the limitations of nature. So they say. So it looks the way it looks. Everybody knows stories. Everybody heard stories. Last Saturday night, I went to Seattle. There was a woman who wrote a book, and she's going to come here. We have to finalize a date, probably later in December or maybe in the beginning of January. A woman which I know for many years from Seward Park. Her husband is a doctor in a Swedish hospital. She wrote a book about her husband's parents, which she knew, all the survivors. And she did 3 years of research to go through their story. And she met the family of Gentiles, which are still alive in Poland, which kept your father-in-law in hiding. And they went out to Poland. And then she shows you, I'm going to bring you here. She's going to be speaking at the Torah Center soon. Waiting for Arnold to come back from Mexico. Don't get stuck there. She went to visit the family. Polacks. But we know those righteous Gentiles, which there were a few of them, who kept Jews in hiding. So this part of the story we know. I was more impressed. How did they survive in that pit? Yeah. How she took them, she showed them the pit. By the way, the pit is still there. Come, let's go into the forest. It's behind our house. They walk into the forest. A loch in dirt, a real pit in the ground. They spent over a year in the cold, in the heat, full days, full nights. Somebody carved out some spot. This wasn't just one person. And I'm looking and I'm saying, the story of the Polak is obviously an amazing story, and it deserves honor and so on. And we all know that there are righteous Gentiles, which they do a beautiful job. The Yad Vashem organization in Israel is to recognize them and to reconnect with them. But then I'm wondering, how does he survive? How do you end up in a pit for a year? How do you go through it? This is a man who escaped Treblinka, a man who built Treblinka, served in Treblinka, escaped Treblinka, ran into the fires and hiding for a year, and he had a child. After the war, got married. An amazing story. I'm not going to tell you the story. I want you to come to the lecture. The woman who he met, it's all a beautiful story. Now, I know the son. The son is Dr. Goldberg in a Swedish hospital.
Shlomo Goldberg?
Shlomo Goldberg. Yes, a doctor who deals with cancer patients. Recently, he was the one who took a lot of care to Karen's husband, Randall Cohen. really devoted to him. So this Shlomo Cohen has a wife, Karen Trieger, a Seattle family.
Shlomo Goldberg.
Shlomo Goldberg, Dr. Goldberg, fine Yid, Seattle Yid. And she tells this story, and I'm like, that only happened because this is what God said. I'm sorry, you're going to have to go to child number 2. If I want to create a nation which their essence is going to be supernatural existence, survival, showing the world that we can go, keep on being in the end of the rope and still come back, and not just come back, but come back in flying colors, I'm going to start it up in that way. Yishmael, you're a great boy, you're a tzaddik, I love you, and I'm blessing you. And he gave him a lot of blessing, and like I said, they were in Israel for many years, and they have they got the oil, whatever you want, keep it, fine. Listen, after all, Avram's and Agar's kids, I'm going to take care of you. But my people, who is going to represent me, this is the people which anyone who watches their history for the last 3,000 years comes back with one statement. This is not normal. This is not natural. I thought it's over. They are back again. They are back again. And they are back with full force, developed a country, going strong, being under threat, being under war, being attacked constantly. Yes, we have some mishugasim that we're dealing with. Mishpucha, that's what happens. Everybody has to deal with what they have to deal. So we have our own inner circle problems. Fine. But the story, that story is a story of Yitzchak and Ishmael. I'm sorry, of Yitzchak and Sarah. And that is why this Parsha talks about in length on what happened with Yitzchak, what happened with Sarah giving birth to Yitzchak, all the way to the final story, the story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, which is again in this week's Parsha, which that story is where Avram clearly, brings out to the open that we are not dealing like normal people. God just promised them that I'm going to give you a child, and that child is going to be a beginning of an entire nation of children and descendants, and like the stars in the sky and the sand on the earth and everything. And at the same time, 36 years later, when Avram is finally having this nice gentleman ready to find a Mashiach, right? Alta Bucher, there's an old Bacher, 36-year-old, they got to marry him. Before this happened, God comes to Avram and says, sorry, it's all over, on the altar. What should have been Avram's? Okay, he doesn't complain, he believes in God, but after all, what should have been one rational thing that Avram should have tell God? Tell me. What should have been one rational thing Avram should have told God?
Can't sacrifice people.
Okay, that's not rational. God said not, now he says yes.
It means let him have some kids or something.
Oh, not just let him have kids. God, this is the one you told me yesterday. This is the one who you told me yesterday that my descendants are going to be realized through him. I'm not questioning you. I'm going to do it. God, don't worry. I'm committed. But can you just explain me how's it going to work exactly? He's not married. There's no descendants. And he didn't put in the bank anything either. Not the money bank. The other bank. Oh, you know, good. I was wondering if you know. Nothing is there. So how is it going to happen? Not a pips. Not a pips. Gurnish with gurnish. He doesn't say a word. This is one simple question. I don't think I would have been able to control myself and not to ask it. I'm ready to do it, but just, yes, we had a conversation yesterday. How's it going to work, yesterday's conversation? Just want to know, curiosity. Doesn't ask anything. Why doesn't he ask? Who talks about who cares how it's going to happen? It has to happen, it's going to happen. We are not a people which are going to build ourselves on the pillars of nature. This is not our story. It was never meant to be, never was, and I'm sorry to tell you, it will never be. Our story is a supernatural story. We are coming from a couple who at the age of 100 years old gave birth to their son. This is our first Zayda, Yitzchak. Okay, this is how it starts, and this is how it's going to go forever. We are not baby one, not baby two, but we like it. We are happy to be baby two, because baby two is the miracle birth, not the natural birth. Me want to associate with the miracle birth. Let the natural birth forever wants to enjoy it. Seid gesund, have a good night. Laila tov, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.